Hi, I'm Kristin Omdahl. I'm a creative entrepreneur embracing every aspect of life with artistic intention. Join me as I share the way I live and all the tips and tricks along the way. Allow me to inspire you to do the same. Please like, share, or comment on my videos. I'd love to hear from you. And if you subscribe to my channel, you'll be first to know when there's something new. Okay, we've blocked all our squares in Rapture, which is the delicate wash that was included with the purchase of the yarn. I now have all of the squares blocked and they've come off the board, and I'm just finishing up on weaving in the loose ends. And I just wanted to show you some of my tips and tricks on the last one here. So what I've done is threaded one of the tails through a yarn needle, and I'm going to weave it back and forth in the work a couple of times, making sure to change direction so that the tail doesn't weave back or wiggle itself back out the next time you wash it, or the next time you fold it up and put it in your suitcase, or have friction against your body. You don't want those tails to come out. So you just want to work back and forth within the structure of the stitches and change direction a few times, and for the most part that will keep it pretty secure. So we're just going to do that with all of the tails. If you can do it for a few inches, that's definitely ideal. And if you have the opportunity at the beginning of a color change or the beginning of the project to actually crochet around your tails, that actually cuts down on the amount of time you need to weave in at this point. I'm going to try to keep my tails within whatever color it is so that it is even more invisible. But if you had to, you could weave it into the other color as well. We're working on the back side, so it's not going to be as noticeable. All right, all our ends are woven in, all of our squares are blocked. So now what we're going to need is a tape measure, crochet hook, and some yarn. And I'm going to use, this is the point when you can decide which color you want to do your joining round in. I'm choosing to do a color that's not represented in each of my squares. Because I use two colors in each square, I'm going to pick a third color for the perimeter of each one. And I'm going to make sure that it changes so that when it joins to another square, it's going to be a different color. So it'll just give it a little more complexity. Another option would be to choose one color, like let's say we did white on all of them, and I think making a cohesive border of all white or all pink or all yellow would be really pretty also. You're just going to have to decide at this point what you think will be prettiest for the colors you chose. If you did this all in one color, obviously doing the border all in one color would be totally fine as well. So I'm going to start with the same size crochet hook we've been using all along and the same yarn we've been using all along, which is Be So Sporty, and I'm going to pick a color that's not represented in a square to show you how we go from here. Okay, so our square is 6 inches blocked, and what I'm going to do is mark on the square every inch with a safety pin. If you think you can wing it on your own without the safety pin, that's totally fine too. But we're going to do a border of chain 5 single crochet, which is approximately an inch. Okay, next up we're going to join a joining round onto this type of square, and notice how it has a whole different set of stitches along there. And what I'm going to show you is that by using the formula that I just showed you on the last motif, we can do the exact same joining round on this one regardless of the fact that it has different stitches in its outside round. So we're going to start by joining. We tied the yarn in a knot like I always do. You can do a slip knot if you prefer. We're going to slip stitch into the corner, chain 1, single crochet into the same space, and we're going to chain 7 and single crochet in the same space for the corner. Now what I want to do is make sure that I do a chain 5 and single crochet every inch across and until I get to the next corner. So if you wanted to take out your tape measure and mark every inch, if you want to use safety pins, you can do that. You could mark 1 inch all the way across. I'm pretty familiar with a 1 inch mark, so I'm going to wing it, but whatever you feel most comfortable with is what you should do. And so it doesn't really matter how many stitches across you do, because we're just going to do every inch. Okay, we're ready to join to the adjacent motif now, and so to replicate our chain 7 space in the corner, we're going to chain 3, slip stitch to the chain 7 space in the adjacent motif, chain 3, and then single crochet back into the same corner. Let me show you what that looks like. We're going to chain 3, but instead of doing a chain 7, we're going to chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3 to replicate that chain 7 and join it at the same time. So we're going to slip stitch into the center of the chain 7 space, the center chain, which is the 4th, chain 3, and single crochet back down into the same corner. And then I'll set that down so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so now we have our corner done. So now we're going to replicate our chain 5 spaces all along here, while at the same time joining them to the chain 5 spaces along here. So what that means is we're going to chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space, chain 2, and single crochet into the space that would onto the main motif, or the current one, 1 inch down. So if you need to mark it, this would be a good time to mark 1 inch spaces. And the reason we're doing that is because we don't have the same number of stitches or the same kind of repeat on each of the motifs. So in order to keep them unified, even though they're not, is to work our stitches in the same inch increments. So what I'm doing is chain 2, slip stitch into the chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, and then work my next single crochet an inch further down from the last single crochet. Okay, until we get to the corner. And then we're going to repeat what we did in the first corner at the beginning of this edge, which was chain 3, slip stitch to the center or 4th chain of the adjacent motif, chain 7 space, chain 3, and single crochet in the same corner. I'll set that down so you can see what it looks like. See, so we have the exact same structure of chain 7 spaces in the corners and chain 5 spaces along every inch of the motif, but we've done them slightly differently because we had to join them to the same spaces on the adjacent motif. So the chain 7 spaces were chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3, and the chain 5 spaces are now chain 2, slip stitch, chain 2. And this is a one-sided join, so we're now going to repeat what we did for all the other non-joining sides for the rest of this round. And what I mean is that we're going to do a chain 5, single crochet an inch away from our last single crochet. We're going to do that 6 times across the edge here, and then we'll do a chain 7 single crochet into the corner for a corner. And we'll do that along both the last 2 sides, slip stitch to join. In the next section, I'll show you how we do a 2-sided join. Before I show you a 2-sided join, I thought that I would show you a 1-sided join on another variety of motif. So we've got this one and this one, so let's grab the 3rd one now. Let's grab that one and we'll do a pink edging on that one. And so what I'm going to show you is now how we do a 1-sided join with this to this motif, how we join it into a corner that's already been joined, and then once we do that one, then I'll be able to show you how to do a 2-sided join. So let's get started, and we're going to slip stitch into the corner after we tie our yarn to our crochet hook. Okay, so we're going to start by joining in the corner, slip stitch, chain 1, single crochet in the same space, chain 7, single crochet in the same space, chain 5. Okay, and you want to single crochet 1 inch away. If you're uncomfortable winging it like I am, I've already done this a few times, so I'm really comfortable winging it. But if you're not, don't forget, pull out some stitch markers, some safety pins, or even just pull out your tape measure and make sure that you're going in 1 inch increments. Because as long as you follow this formula and do 6 1-inch increments across, you'll have the same exact pattern on this outside round so that you can join perfectly to the other motifs even though they are not the same pattern. This is such a great tip for learning how to join things that you maybe didn't do in the same project, or maybe just chose to do a sampler kit like this. It's something that you don't always learn how to do, but once you know how to do it, you can apply it to anything. So now we've done our 6 chain 5 spaces and single crochet across. We're ready to do our corner. I'm going to start with a chain 3 just like we did on our last joining, only this time we're joining into a space that's already been joined into. And the reason I told you to join in the 4th chain of those chain 7 spaces instead of just into the big open space is because now we have an opportunity to join in the same exact chain space, so we're getting a really nice and tidy and neat join when we slip stitch into it a second time. So we chain 3, slip stitch into that same chain space, chain 3, and single crochet back down into our corner. And I'm going to set up my work down so you can see that. See how they're all joined now into that same tight little 1 chain space, which is the 4th chain of the chain 7 space. I'm ready to start my joining side now, so I've done my chain 2 of the chain 5 space. We're going to slip stitch into the chain 5 space adjacent. And anytime you're confused when you're joining things, it always helps to set your work down. When it's up like this, it's hard to figure out if your right side facing the right line or right lines matching up. So you always want to set it down if you're getting confused, or even just as a quick check. And now we're going to do, we did our chain 2, slip stitch into the adjacent chain 5 space, chain 2, and then single crochet an inch further along our side. Chain 2, slip stitch, chain 2, single crochet an inch further away, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space in the adjacent motif, chain 2, single crochet 1 inch further along, chain 2. You get the idea. So we're just going to do this all the way across until we get to our chain 7 corner, and then I'll show you how we join that one again with a chain 3, slip stitch chain 3 into the adjacent corner. Almost there. Okay, so we're going to chain 3, slip stitch into the 4th or center of the chain 7 space, chain 3, so that chain 3 slip stitch chain 3 counts as our current chain 7 space, and single crochet into the same corner. And then we're going to chain 5 and single crochet every inch apart across the next side to the next corner. And you know how we do that, so I'm just going to continue on, finish this motif, and then I'll show you how we join on 2 sides in the next motif. I've also been weaving in my ends as I go, so I don't have a big hassle to do at the very end. So now we have 3 squares joined, 1 side each, and now to join a 4th square, I'm going to show you how we join it on 2 consecutive sides. We're going to start it like we started all the rest. And because we've done a join round in white, purple, and pink, I'm now going to join this one in yellow, so that the join rounds are different colors and never touch the same, but that's just because that's what I chose to do for this design aesthetic. You can choose to do this any way you prefer. So I'm going to move those up out of the way for now, and we're going to start this like we started all the rest. We're going to start with a slip stitch in the corner, chain 1, single crochet in the corner, chain 7, single crochet in the same corner, and then we're going to chain 5 and single crochet 1 inch in 1 inch increments all the way across for a total of 6 times across our 6-inch sided motif until we get to the corner, and then we're going to replicate our chain 7 corner with a join. Okay, we're ready for our corner, so we're going to chain 3 now instead of chain 7, chain 3 and slip stitch into the center chain or the 4th chain of the adjacent motif's chain 7 space, chain 3, single crochet in the same corner, then we're going to chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, and single crochet 1 inch further along on our current motif. And this is the same way we did the one-sided join on the previous motifs. What I'm going to show you differently this time is how we join on a second side, which is basically the same thing as joining on one side, but we share the chain 7 space corner. So I'll show you when we get there. Okay, almost there. One more chain 5 space join. Okay, we're ready to do our corner. And just like I said in the previous section, if you're unsure if you're doing things correctly, it always helps to set your work down and see if everything's lining up beautifully, laying flat. If it's not, there might be a mistake somewhere. There isn't here. It's looking beautiful. So now our chain 7 space in the corner is a chain 3, just like it was in any other corner join. But this time we're joining into that same chain 1 space, which is the 4th of the chain 7, but this will now be the 3rd time we join into the 4th, or the original. So we had our original chain 7 space, we joined it with a chain 3 slip stitch, chain 3 in this one, and in this one we joined it with a chain 3 slip stitch, chain 3, and we're going to do that again here. Chain 3, slip stitch into that same chain space, chain 3, and single crochet in the same corner. I'm going to set our work down again, because now we're going to repeat what we did along this side, which was replicating the chain 5 spaces with chain 2 slip stitch, chain 2, and we're going to now do it along this side. So same thing we've already done. We've done this multiple times, just doing it after we turn a little bit. So chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space, chain 2, single crochet 1 inch further along on our current motif. If you need to pull out your tape measure, if you need to pull out your stitch markers, safety pins, whatever works. I'm winging it, but that's because I've already done this one and I remember where they go in this particular pattern. If you're unsure if this is looking right, always set your work down. And it's looking like a joined set of motifs, isn't it? So I'm validated that I'm doing it correctly, and I can pick my work back up and get moving. I want to get this done so I can enjoy this beautiful multicolor lacy design. Last corner, we're going to chain 3, slip stitch to the 4th of the chain 7 space in the adjacent motif, chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch into the same corner on our current motif. And I'll set the work down so you can see where we're at now. And now we're just going to do finish up our last side of this motif, which is done the same way we've done in all the sides that aren't joined. It's a chain 5 and single crochet 1 inch further along until we reach all the way across our 6-inch sided motif and join with a slip stitch at the beginning of the round. And we slip stitch to the first single crochet at the beginning of the round to join. And now we've done 3 one-sided join motifs and 1 two-sided join motif.